What's up, guys? I'm Chris Reynolds, Charlotte 49er all-time leading passer and professional quarterback. I'm calling all quarterbacks to take their game to the next level, not only physically, but mentally. With 50 career starts and thousands of snaps under my belt, I've experienced many of the do's and don'ts of this game. Join me for a one-on-one quarterback session to improve your biomechanics that allows us to throw with more velocity, accuracy, and efficiency. Have a better understanding of defensive scheme and strategy, and create more efficient footwork. Or join me on Sundays at New Age Athlete from 10 to 11 for a Sunday group recovery and polish to recharge the batteries for a new week. When it comes to film study, I offer in-season, one-on-one, Zoom, or in-person sessions to have a better understanding of how opponents try to attack us and to evaluate your play so we can improve for the following week. All options are on my Calendly link, calendly.com/Chris Reynolds QB, or you can find more information on my Instagram page at Chris Reynolds QB Training. I have a deep passion for this game, and I'm excited to take everything that I learned to take the younger QBs to another level. As always, roll Niners.
Welcome back to the Highway 49 podcast. We are back with episode 82 of the show, and there's a lot to talk about around Charlotte football right now. We'll get to everything from Charlotte's first AAC win on the road at Rice, social media warfare, to this huge game at home against ECU on Saturday. But as always, we're going to start with the best thing we've seen this week. Hannah, what you got?
I would have to say, since I've been working on Saturdays, I haven't been able to catch a lot of like the really good college football games. And so I actually got to get home and I watched the Bama Georgia game. And it's been a while since I've like sat down, watched a game, and like it's got real exciting. You watch that game and it's like, okay, Bama looks really good. They look like the best team in the nation. And all of a sudden Georgia comes back and it was a crazy game. It was just a great game of football. So that was probably the best thing that I had seen over the weekend. But yeah, excited for more of that kind of college football to trickle in throughout the course of the next couple weeks. But Jeremy, what you got?
Hunter and I might have the same thing, but I'm still gonna do it. Hornets Media Day was on Monday, correct? Last year I covered the Hornets all season, but it was like game by game, so I had to like email them and say, "Hey, can I get a credential?" Or, "Hey, whatever." We pulled up yesterday, and they just had the full season credential there. They sniped my photo. I don't know, like you usually send in your photo and then they process it. They sniped it, and I told one
Shout
of
out
the PR
Jack,
guy,
man.
shout out Jack, man. Jack's awesome.
Yay!
He's also celebrating a birthday soon. We will wish him happy birthday when we see him on Tuesday for the preseason game. But I was like, Jack, you sniped my photo. Like, give me a heads up first. And just in all fun, but they gave me locker room access too. They messed up. Shouldn't have given me that locker room access.
That's amazing.
I'm gonna be asking legacy questions to, to
Oh.
Kevin Durant in the post game locker room. But yeah, just cool because you guys know how much I talk about the NBA, how much I love that, and being able to have that full season credential is really cool. So looking forward to this season. Panthers are going on right now. Charlotte football, Charlotte basketball starting up soon. So gonna be busy, but it's a good busy. That's the best thing I've seen this week. How about you, Hunter?
Yeah, man. Just overall, Hornets Media Day yesterday was really fun. And getting credentialed to cover an NBA team through the podcast that I created a couple years ago was nuts. Just want to shout out all the listeners. Shout out you, Hannah, Jeremy. This is a ton of fun to do, and it's crazy the doors that it's opening professionally when it just started as something and that we all really three just enjoy. So that's definitely the best thing. And then catching up with Jeremy, Jerry, Matt, Jack, so many of the guys covering the Hornets. It's a really good group of people, and it's just a fun organization to be around. Obviously, they're working towards that on-court success, but the people in the building are the right ones, and it's a ton of fun to be around.
Yeah, absolutely. Going off of that, one last thing. I got to pat myself on the back, of course. But I was going to these Hornets Blazers games on Tuesday nights, man. Like I better,
Working for
right?
it, man.
Like it's funny because some media members, when the Lakers game is there, you like, I haven't seen any of these faces ever. right? They're just pulling up because LeBron's in town. I don't blame them because that game was one of the most fun times we've ever had, right? You,
Oh
me,
yeah.
Jerry, just having a time of our lives. But I love the NBA so much. So going to those small scale games and getting, validated by that thing was just really cool. But let's get into some Charlotte stuff, man. I just want to pat myself on the back. As always, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, let's pat you both on the back.
I
That's
just had a
Yeah.
awesome.
Celsius, man. I was a little groggy in the beginning, but now I'm up. I'm ready to go. Let's go.
He drank half of that since it started. It's
Drank
been like
half of it.
3 minutes.
Come
What's
on,
Yeah.
up?
man.
Let's
Come
go.
on, man.
Definitely, guys. So Charlotte went to actually hold on. We can't talk about football yet. There's been a lot going on. Let's get to it.
Some
Ryan,
toxicity.
some toxicity in the Charlotte in the Judy W. Rose Center, the football center. Man, so Sunday, I'm at the Panthers game. I didn't work this one. I'm here with my girlfriend. We're having some drinks, had some mimosas. I pull out my phone like, I don't know, second, maybe the third quarter, and there's a ton going on social media. Defensive coordinator Ryan Osborn going back and forth with some fans. And I'm going to go ahead and plug Biff Poggi's audio. He addressed it in his opening comment today. I think it will give you a good summary of what happened and how he plans to deal with it. So we'll go ahead and drop that now.
I want to start with a statement. Came to my attention Sunday morning. We got back late from Houston, or early from Houston Sunday morning. Came to my attention after that Coach Osborn had been in a inappropriate back and forth with a fan on Twitter. I met with Coach Osborn. We had a very stern talk. That is completely unacceptable. He knows it. He issued an apology, and it will not happen again. And what I said to him was this: go home tonight and thank God that we coach at a place where our fans care. Because look, I'm not going to name any names, but we have been places, and I have been places, where you play and nobody cares. Our fans care. They show up. This program's 12 years old, hasn't had the wins our fans wanted, but they keep showing up. And it's 3 straight sellouts. I think Saturday's supposed to be like standing room only tickets. There are schools who win a lot of games that would die for that. And I love the fact that when we win, they're joyous, and when we lose, they take it as hard as we do. And you got to have thick skin if you're going to be in this business, whether you're a player, you're a coach, you're an AD, you're a chancellor, whatever it is. You got to have thick skin. And the day our fans stop caring, that will be a problem. And I love the fact that I don't know how they do it, but they'll get a snippet of a play and they'll break it down. I don't know where they get it or how they get it, but and they love it. And I appreciate that. I've said a million times, more than I can count on my toes and my fingers, I love our fans, and it's a great fan base. And they want to win, and so do we. And that's what we're working on.
It's one of those things, guys, where it's like, obviously it's not a good look, right? You never want someone in a position of power arguing back and forth with fans on social media. I guess the way that it was addressed by Biff, I think he handled it. I really don't have a ton to add. You have a really strong fan base. I mean, of course, what Biff said a few weeks ago about folks leaving during Gardner Webb, we said it on here. Don't go down 17-3 at the half to an FCS team. That's going to happen at Charlotte. That's going to happen at Clemson. That's going to happen at Florida State, Bama, wherever. It doesn't matter what the program is. That's the type of standard you uphold with your fans. As far as this past week, like I say, not the best look. I'm having trouble with this because Charlotte's defense is something that they hung their hat on all of last season, and that was what kept them in games. Osborn is a friend of a show. He's been great to us as the media. He's been one of the realest coaches as far as telling the truth about what's really going on with this program. So we appreciate him. I think I'll leave it at that. Hannah, Jeremy, you guys have things to add?
Yeah, I would agree with everything that you said. I think Coach handled it well today. I think his statement of saying, we talked about this a little bit, Hunter. I mean, saying the minute the fan base stops caring will be a problem, and that's so true because hell or high water, Niner Nation has shown up and they have shown out, and they have continued to watch, a team not knowing if they're going to win or not? So I really, really appreciated his statement on that. I think he handled it very well. I mean, the whole thing with Coach Osborne, we obviously don't know the context of the situation. We're obviously not coaches. So everything that you see on TV and everything that might go on, we don't know, whether it was a difficulty in, seeing everything on the field and coaching, but heat of the moment, just keep it to yourself. Sometimes I just think there was a little heat of the moment and, just wanted to put something out there, and I don't know. I just think that it's best to just keep your mouth shut, move on. Obviously we all get frustrated and yeah. So
Jeremy's about to cook, dude. I don't know. I have no idea what
I've
you're
been
gonna
waiting this
say.
whole time. He's like cracking up.
Oh man, it's crazy what a Celsius can do, guys. But friend of the pod, Ryan Osborn, right? We've talked to him, we've gotten into some deep football like stuff in the off season, really trying to get into the nitty-gritty. And it's funny, Benjamin Edwards, I'm gonna shout you out again, man, because like Hunter said, he was at a Panthers game. He started drinking mimosas at 8 a.m., right? He starts getting these notifications on his Twitter. He's like, man, I'm not dealing with this right now. Like it's a Sunday. I'm watching some Panthers. I want to relax. I want to, with me,
Uh,
with me, I'm just watching some football. I turn on the first episode of The Penguin, the HBO show, going off with the Batman. And then I get a DM from Benjamin. He's like, yo, you know what's going on? I'm like, huh? I'm just having a nice, peaceful time, minding my business, just watching some shows. And then Benjamin fills me in, and it was a little, the doxing was crazy. That part was crazy. On a serious note, like, I it's a good thing I'm not a coach. I'll say
Yeah.
that because I would
Be out
be
here like
shooting
Kevin Durant.
firing, right? I'd be shooting firing like KD, right? Like I don't care what the PR team of the school, of the program, of whatever franchise would be telling me, I'm firing back because you're firing at me. At the same time, I don't agree with the way he went about it. So it's tough because I think Osborne is one of the best people with X's and O's. And when you are someone who really, really loves the game, like that pod when we had him on, and he's
Yeah.
talking about looking at, was it Jake Fromm or one of the QBs for
Georgia.
Georgia,
Yeah.
and the way he's wiping his hand on a towel and he's watching a film to know that when he does that, it's a run or a pass or whatever. Like this guy is tuned in. So when he gets a notification from someone calling out his defense, he's like, dude, what are your credentials to be telling me what the hell I should be doing with my defense, right? I know. Remember when he came on the pod and he said like the one thing he hates during pressers is when the defense gets like 300 yards on them and they get 30 points on them and we walk in and say, so you guys got smoked, like can you talk about it? He's like, yeah, we watched the same shit. We got smoked. What do you want me to say? That's the kind of vibe I got from it. Like I get it, we were shedding tackles. I will address this at practice. I don't need you coming on and just like piling on top. But at the same time, the way you go about that is not calling out someone and revealing, a family member, doing all that type of stuff. I was at practice today, and Osborne was in great spirits. It's funny how I was watching the defensive group, doing some drills, and someone had a great rep, and Osborne said, "With great power comes great what?" And he looks over at me, points at me, and the whole defensive group looks at me. I'm just like this small 5'9" kid on a great day. I'm giving myself some credit here, 5'9" on a great day, and the whole defense looks at me, and he's like, "Answer that, Jay." Like, what is it? I just look and shake my head like we've all watched Spider-Man, man. Okay, we get it. But then on another time, he keeps looking at me and say, "That was a great rep, wasn't it?" So I think that he's not letting it affect him. He's just trying to coach the players today and the pressers when we were talking about it. They're like, we just want to follow Oz. Whatever he calls, we're gonna do. So I do think that they've moved past it. I do think Biff had a great response. He came out guns a blazing, and I was
Yeah.
like, hey, if he sets the tone like that, there's not much I can say, right? He said everything that the fan base wanted to hear. So at this point, this is a big week. like you said, Hunter, like before we started, I don't know if it was before we started taping or what, but you were like, based on what we've seen so far, you would have thought they lost last
Yeah,
week. They won. We talked about it all last week on last week's pod. Like this is that game where you can go in and have a chance to be 500, or you can have a chance to, do something that's not 500. And now they did the right thing. They won. So let's see what happens with ECU. Put that in the past, and let's see if you guys can beat the Pirates on Saturday.
definitely. And I think what you just said articulates this well. Like Charlotte won that game, and I think that should be the focal point of the week rather than a back and forth. So not the best look there. We talked about that. Let's get to the football. I was asked about it a few times on the radio today. You can check that on Weston Walker for more thoughts there. But to the game, right? This was a huge game for Charlotte going to Rice, your first conference game. It's on the road. You're still going back and forth with quarterbacks, and you go on the road and get it done. You spot them 10 points in the first half. The offense does nothing. I mean, it was Trexler Ivy got the start, and I'll be the first to tell you guys, I went on the show and said I thought Trexler should be the guy. He gives them the best chance to win if he does the simple things. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys. It just seems like you shaking eight balls. Like, all right, which quarterback's gonna be good today? Okay, or whoever comes in second. That's been the deal with Trexler replacing Purdy against Gardner Webb. Now the flip on the road. But man, Deshaun Purdy looked the part Saturday night, especially in the second half. He comes in, they're trailing 10-0. I'm not even sure they had gotten across midfield. I need to double check that, but they weren't doing much of anything on offense at all. Deshaun comes in immediately, throws a 32-yard touchdown to Omega Blake, really gets the ball rolling, and you kind of see the momentum start to shift. Very next possession, they go right back to him. Him and Omega had a great connection, and it was interesting to hear the few words that Omega said today. We'll get into that in a minute. But Charlotte's offense really bounced back, and I think when you look at Purdy's game, 10 to 15, 183 yards, he was taking shots on the field. He took 5 shots over 20 yards or more, connected on 3 of them. Trexler had not hit one at all. Not just that game. I'm talking at all this season. So when you look at what he gives to the offense, that's what changed the game. Rice was sitting on all the short routes. They were loading the box. Charlotte rushed for just 66 yards or 67 yards. It's going to be hard. Like, I think as far as having an identity for that team, there still is none. And whether who is that quarterback, that's something they got to get figured out.
Yeah, I love admitting when I'm wrong. I remember we had a pod a few weeks back, and we were having this Purdy or Ivy conversation, and looking back on it, I can say that if Biff pulled Purdy in that game before the injury, I don't know where the confidence level is today.
Right.
I'm not saying that Purdy isn't going to go out and be Deshaun Purdy, right? But I think it was big for him to know until the injury happened, my coach was leaning on me whether we were when the ship's sinking or what.
He was literally going right until the wheels fell off.
Right into
No.
the wheels fell off. And now you can see that when he put him in that game and he played well, I was wrong, right? Like, I think sometimes it does matter. Like, hey, my coach really trusts me. I'm gonna be that guy. And now, I mean, even in practice today, with him and Ivy are going back and forth, but it was that competitive. Like, they're both practicing with the ones. They're both taking the same reps. And I don't know where we are if you pulled him after one of those fumbles or interceptions.
I think this talks a lot about the depth in the QB room, though, that really has never been there. Like when I think about even when Chris was there, if Chris went down, you had James Foster, you had Xavier Williams, but were you really going to win games with those guys? And the answer resoundingly was no. And I think you have that in Trexler, you had that in Purdy, and they both showed that. So when your guy Max, who Biff said had a chance of playing this week, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I don't know why you would rush him back knowing you have a bye week next week. That makes no sense to me. I understand this is a huge game, but if you want to do anything in conference play, you want the guy that you invested in IL wise. And what is the point of rushing him back from a surgery to play this week, knowing he's got a bye week upcoming? That's befuddling to me. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it to Hannah real quick, but we were just talking about last week. I just keep going back to that, and we talked about like there's a point where the season could go two different directions, and we
Yep.
have clearly gone in the right direction, right, with that win. Hannah, what was your kind of reaction to that win last week? And not even for the ECU game, but even with the presser today, like you could tell it would have been completely different if they didn't walk out of Rice with a W.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everyone wants to come and win their first conference game. I think that sets the tone. But realistically, it didn't feel like a win, like we said. Like that whole game, if the first half, it didn't look like they hardly played. There was no offensive rhythm, hardly any defensive rhythm either. And they come out in the second half and it looks like a different team. So I think this week is actually the bigger test of, okay, are we as good as we expect to be? Are we as good as we think that we are, that we know we are, against a really, really good ECU team who won their game last week against UTSA, and it was a nail biter for a little while. So I think there's still football to be proven for this team. That's what I think. And I going back to that like Trexler and Deshaun Purdy situation, I have noticed a little bit. I don't know whether it's just a mentality thing. I feel like whenever we take out a quarterback, the next man up mentality kind of lights a fire in the next guy. I don't know. I don't know if that's a thing, but that's just what I'm observing. But it does speak to the depth of the quarterback room, and that is something that we haven't seen at Charlotte. I mean, it's helpful to know that if Trex goes out, then Deshaun can go in, and then vice versa. I mean, and then you have Max Brown coming back in, but obviously, I don't think we should put him in next week or this week because we spent so much money and so much effort, so much time getting him here. Why would we want to waste a whole, you know, year and future of him, leading this team to success? So I think there's still a lot more to be proven, especially this week, because this is definitely the turning point.
I'm cooking with gas right now. Don't pull a Boston Celtics and do a Robert Williams situation, right? Where Robert Williams, he's coming back from injury. You're like, oh, we can bring him back. It might help us out a little bit. And now you kind of set him back even further because you wanted him to come back to help you out short term. Don't pull an Isaiah Thomas Boston Celtics, right? Where you're like, hey, we really need you. We know that knee isn't exactly where it needs to be, and still want you back though. When he comes back, he helps you, and then later on, the injury is actually worse. Two alumni from Charlotte on this podcast here. We're not homers. I can fairly say that I don't think they win the two games that they had a marginal victory this year, last year. I really don't. The FCS school, Gardner Webb, and then this week with Rice, or last week with Rice. I don't think you win those games. Biff said the same thing. Cam asked a good question today. Like, what's that mentality with when you are when you are pulling out gritty wins? And Biff was like, hey man, a lot of it isn't me. We've heard Biff say a lot. Coaches don't mean that much. He always says it's the talent, right? And I do think that I don't know what corner they turned, but they turned the corner. So going into this week, let's see if that can really shape up.
Well, and that's the thing. So obviously Osborn's been a hot topic this week, but the defense played well enough down the stretch to get this win, right? Like I said, they gave up 10 in the first half. In my mind, that's still enough to keep your offense in the game. I mean, if you spot someone 10 points in a half of football, the offense could have at least gotten 3, at least gotten 7, something. They had to get something going. So in the second half, they do. And I got to shout out Donnie Balfour. He took a really hard hit at the end of this game on a blindside block, and it knocked him out for the remainder of the game. He played his best game far and away this season, and I'm happy to see it. It was his first game without the club on his hand. He still has it wrapped, but he was all over the place. I believe he had 2 pass breakups. He was everywhere. And then Ali, like he was a preseason first teamer for the AAC, and I was a little bit shocked because he only got to play in 6 games last year for Charlotte. But man, has he delivered? He's been one of their best players. Him and Dante have 3 pass breakups each on the season, leading the team. My main concern on the defense is the interior pass coverage. I'm talking linebackers. I'm talking nickel corners. I'm going to read some stats here. So guys like Reed Williford, CJ Burton, Cam Burton, Prince Bima, and CJ Clinkscales. Those are kind of the middle of the field, like I say, linebackers and nickels. Combined, those guys have been targeted 53 times in coverage, or that when they were responsible. They're allowing catches on 44 of those 53. That's 83%, 5 touchdowns. The middle of the field is where Charlotte's getting shredded right now. And we talked all last year about Kyle Green, about Demetrius Knight, those replacements. We've talked at length this year. That's been the killer. And I asked Poggi about it today. What's going on with the pass rush? We talked a ton about Stone Handy. He told us he could wreck games. Osborn doubled down on that. Chance Williams coming over from Miami. Damon Clowney's back. There's little to no production. They didn't have a single sack against Rice. And one thing about this game Saturday, we're going to get into the preview in a few minutes. Biff said today, if we don't get pressure, it's not happening. And one thing about Mason Garcia, East Carolina's quarterback, he's thrown 11 picks, guys. That's a lot of interceptions in 5 games. We're talking over 2 a game. If you get to him, he's gonna throw them to you, and that's a whole thing we'll get to. But Jay, what were you gonna say? I assume it's about the pass rush.
Yeah, you kind of answered it. I wanted to say, like, elaborate on Biff because you asked that question. And he said not only what you just said, but he also was like, if we don't get pressure this week, like, we're gonna have some problems, right?
Yeah.
Like, we gotta address this.
Well, that's the thing is you're looking at the field or at the edge spot specifically, and saying who's gonna win a rush. Like no one has commanded a double team this season other than Chance Williams, and he really flashed against JMU. Stone Handy played the most snaps he's played this season. I think it was 22. It was not a great game for him. He recorded a tackle, but really struggled in the run defense department. You're going to need more from him. Like he is your guy on the edge. They knew that going into the season. He's got to play well because one thing I've learned being an Eagles fan watching them this year, if there's no pass rush, Darius Slay's out there looking like a podcaster, right? So I'm
He
just
is a
kidding.
podcaster
I know, I
after hopping on that thing with Micah
know.
Parsons. That's crazy. Quick side note. I saw someone tweet like, dang, it's 2024 and we got conference rivals or like division rivals laughing about getting cooked. I don't know, man. Yeah.
Especially getting blown out on the road. I know.
Where's Brian Dawkins when you need him, man?
I just miss Malcolm Jenkins. I can't tell you how much a good leader on a defense changes things. And this is where I want to go a little bit. We asked about Jaquarius Conley today. There's a little bit of movement on that front, apparently, but watching how he operates at practice, not even being able to practice with the team, he's still in full pads. He's got his helmet. He seems like a leader of the defense when he gets back on the field. I think that's going to help them a lot, lining up a lot alongside Ali at that safety position because some of these middle of the field issues are killing them, and I think he can aid that. Jeremy, I want to ask a question to you and then open up to Hannah as well. You asked a great question today about the receivers because when going into the season, one of the biggest questions was, could this group be a plus? Because last year it was they were rarely open, and if they were open, the quarterback couldn't put it on them. We saw Jack Estera, Jairus Mack. We wanted things from Jaden Bradley, didn't see much from him at all. But Jay, will you talk about your question, Biff's response, and then what you think of the talent in that room this season?
Yeah, I'm gonna do another like Panthers analogy real quick, and it doesn't really go one for one because Deshaun Purdy's played way better. But I think Trexler Ivy going into that game, that's yeah. I think Trexler Ivy going into that game, against Gardner Webb showed that okay, they have weapons. Trexler was able to dial up quick decisions, get the ball to the playmakers, give them some confidence, let them get going. And that's when we realized, like, oh wait, the receiving core is pretty good here with Bryce. Deontay Johnson is a monster. Let's be honest. He's good. Adam Thielen's good. Xavier Legette just had a career game on Sunday. You didn't know that when Bryce Young was quarterback. Then they put Andy Dalton in, and then you were able to see some production. I do think that because you're right. When we opened up the preseason, we are talking about the wide receiving core. That was one of the big questions. And what we've learned 4 weeks in is that you've got some studs there. You got Omega Blake. You've got Sean Brown. You've got Isaiah Myers, you've got, who am I forgetting? Jairus Mack. You got some playmakers there, and that's going to be really big for the 49ers, especially in a game like this when ECU, they're one of the best rushing defenses in the conference. And if you're able to kind of pass that ball through the air, I think that gives you a big advantage.
Yeah, I mean, Biff said it last season. He needed erasers, those guys to step up, make big time plays. And we've actually seen that this year. And I agree with him when he says that this team is completely different than last year and would not be in this position. I mean, we've seen improvement on the offense. Like, we have so much talent, especially in the wide receiver room, especially also in the running back room. I mean, you have so many guys that can make plays and do things for the offense. It's just about the connection, one, between whoever is at quarterback and them being able to spot an open man and make a play down the field. But there are some really, really good weapons. I mean, Sean Brown, we've talked about him a lot, like just a great guy, great story, and like seeing him have a career day in the game against Gardner Webb, like that's awesome. And then you have Omega Blake. I mean, a man of few words, one uh, I'm excited to see him honestly this week and see if he actually, gets excited, shows emotion. Um, I'm actually just really excited for this rivalry as a whole because I think it will be really nice to see like the team hungry, to see, their excitement, and belief, coming off of a win. Like, okay, we're actually we're actually good. We've proven that we can win an American Conference game. So let's do it. Let's do it a second time. So I'm just excited to see whether who's going to be the quarterback, we don't know, obviously. I'm excited to see, how they can sort of find offensive rhythm and increase the tempo. I think a fast start is definitely going to be needed and not be a second half team.
And real fast, before we shift to ECU, I just want to talk about one of the receivers, Zay Myers. He made one of the best catches I've ever seen in that game Saturday night with about 5 minutes left, maybe a little less than that. It's a left-footed like toe drag on the sideline. It's an insane ball by Purdy where only his guy can get it, and it's ruled incomplete on the field. It's pretty clear to me, and I think most people watching during the replay that that's a catch. And the ref looked like he was about to phone a friend, dude. He was watching the little iPad thing for like, I'm talking 5 or 6 minutes. Like it wasn't the standard 90-second thing where you're back out on the field. It took forever. And then they doubled down and said, yeah, there's not enough evidence to overrule the call. It's incomplete. So trailing 20-14, Charlotte punts the ball. Just a few minutes left in the action. And you know damn well you need a stop to even give your true freshman quarterback a chance to win the game. They get a 3-and-out. The run defense comes through. Deshaun gets the ball, hits Omega Blake on a 66-yard pass, sets up a 1st and goal. Hassan Wilson punches it in, and you're feeling like this is one of those plays where someone on defense is going to force that turnover. They didn't get a turnover against Indiana the week before. You need a takeaway to put this game away. And ultimately, it doesn't happen. Rice trailing by 1 point, 47 seconds left. Guys, they went right down the field. Like this blindside block on Dante Balfour, I would say, obviously it hurt Charlotte because you're losing your best guy, but they needed that penalty to stay alive. It put Rice back just enough. Ultimately, their kicker misses a 40-yard field goal, and that's why Charlotte wins. It was just a wild game on the road. And like I said, everything on social media, you would think Charlotte lost this game. And everything in the box score but the score would indicate that Charlotte lost this game. Rice outgained them in literally everything, but Charlotte made 3 huge passing plays with Deshaun hitting Omega all 3 times and came up when it mattered most and had a grain of luck there right at the end. So it's one of those things where you got the dub. Now what are you going to do with it? And with that, I say let's go ahead and get into ECU. Jay, talk to us about the Pirates, man.
Yeah, let me just start with the presser today. Biff was like, "Hey, seems like every week he's like, we had the best day of practice ever today, right?" But truly, it seemed like it was. I got there, and vibes are great. Saw Mike Miller. Mike Miller was like, "Hey, yo," like I've known him for like 10 years. I was like, "Hey, what's up, Mike?" Saw Biff. One of the questions I asked Biff was because he called me over. He's like, "Hey, Jeremy, come over here." And we were just talking, and he was like, "Yo, I didn't know the rivalry between ECU and Charlotte was like this toxic." And we were just laughing for a second. He's like, "Dude, I never knew the fan bases hate each other this much. What was there? Like, is this a newfound thing because we haven't played them before?" And I was like, "Hey, man, those intra-state, rivalries really be getting hectic in North Carolina, but practice was great. I had the juice flowing with me. I was like, let me throw some cleats on and run a 40 real quick. Let's see what my time is right now. I haven't ran one of those in a long time.
Man, that
Um,
hamstring's about to be cooked if
my
you do
hamstring would be
that.
done by 25 by 25 yards, man. It'd be over. But with ECU, like I said, you have a chance to go 500, right? ECU is 3-2. They're above 500. They have wins against Norfolk State, Old Dominion, UTSA. They have losses against App State and Liberty. They're allowing 18 points per game, which is third in the AAC, 36 in the country, and they lead the AAC in interceptions. Now, Hunter said their QB throws a lot of interceptions. Well, the defense also gets a lot of interceptions. They have seven, or I think they have seven, two for touchdowns, maybe nine. Is it nine or seven?
He got 7 picks, 2 for touchdowns.
Seven for
No, my
picks, two for
handwriting
touchdowns.
sucks, bro.
And they're last in the AC in the AAC in time of possession, which actually tracks because in the presser we were talking about how they change offensive coordinators and they're a lot faster of a team now. So we asked Lakota Dupree, he's like, hey, we've got to get to the line faster. We have to communicate well. We have to make sure we're on our P's and Q's because if we don't, we get burned or we get a 12 man on the field because we're not switching correctly. All these things come into play. Focusing more on ECU's offense, though, their starting QB is Jake Garcia. Like you said, Hunter, he's just throwing out picks like Oprah in 2009. You get a pick, you get a pick, you get a pick. He's got 1,315 yards, 7 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. And their leading rusher, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Rajay Harris, 88 carries, 349 yards, 3 touchdowns. Just to put into perspective, their second leading rushers at 92 yards. So
Yeah.
Rajay is like clear and away their number one rusher. And Charlotte is last in the AAC in rushing with 79 yards per game. ECU's at 120. They also have a great running or rush defense, which is kind of funny because Charlotte's not a good running team. So if you're going to have a strength, it's the best part that your strength is where Charlotte isn't really that good at. So they're not going to be focusing on that. My overview for this game basically was that ECU has an explosive offense with a fast pace. They don't dominate the ball, but they score on splash plays. Luckily, their best strength run defense is what Charlotte is weakest at. So we'll see. It'll be a war of attrition. It doesn't matter. This feels like a divisional game, right? Like a Saints Falcons game. It doesn't matter what analysis, doesn't matter what stats you're going into the game with. Once it starts, it's gonna be weird stuff going on. Probably gonna be a one possession game with 5 minutes left. And at that point, it comes down to execution, not just with the players, with coaching, with Osborn, with Mike Miller, with what when you want to call your timeouts with Biff Poggi, right? And we've seen Charlotte in these one possession games come out victorious in the past two. We'll see what happens in this one. But ECU, talk about like a 3:30 kickoff. They're coming into here after what happened last year. Hunter, you and I were at that game. We're like, what is happening? We drove 3.5 hours and it's like a 10-7 game in the fourth quarter. We have no clue what's going on. It's going to be one of those again. But I mean, talk about being excited and how it could have been different if they lost last week.
No doubt, man. It's like when you think about this game, the 3:30 kick, ESPNU, and Charlotte just came out, 2 weeks ago and said y'all can tailgate 8 hours before the kick instead of 4. So we got people out here having breakfast. We got people having multiple meals ahead of the game, get dinner in the third quarter. It's going to be a wild environment at Jerry Richardson
Quickly,
Stadium.
I don't know who the guy's name is, the Paul Blart Mall cop.
Yeah.
I don't know his name. However, Charlotte always does like the fourth quarter, thing where it's
Kevin
like, have
James.
your
Yeah.
engines.
Yeah.
I can't wait for it to happen this Saturday. I expect it to be crazy, like Biff said, raucous in that stadium. Yeah, we'll
Are we
see.
officially calling this the Booty Bowl? Have we determined that?
I think, I mean, until someone comes with something better, can't really mess with that.
Perfect.
It's last year, it literally was the Booty Bowl. That was some terrible football going on the offensive side. I will shout out Charlotte's defense. They played about as good as you can play in that game. They held ECU to 127 total yards, which is, I believe, the lowest they had ever held anyone to in ECU's lowest offensive output. And it was just such a wild game. Jalen Jones ran for 127 yards in that game. So he was the equivalent to their offense. That was just a wild game on homecoming there in Greenville. And when you're coming here for this game, I think Charlotte's keys, we talked about the run game struggles. I think the key is whoever is at quarterback, you got to let them cook. You got to spread the field. ECU does have a great pass defense too. They're one of the better defenses in the conference right now. They are missing Siobhan Revel Jr., who was probably going to be one of the top 5 corners picked in this NFL draft. He tore his ACL a couple weeks ago. He's out for the season, but their reinforcements have played well. I think the biggest thing, and we talked about it, putting pressure on Jake Garcia. Who is it going to be? Is it going to be Stone? Is it going to be Damon? Is it going to be Lakota? Chance Williams? Some interesting stats on him. Garcia has not thrown a touchdown on the road this year of his 7. He's thrown 7 of his picks, though, with a clean pocket. So while it is key to get to him, you want him to speed up and make those decisions. He's making bad decisions regardless. So you got to have guys like Ali, Dante. I mean, you could laugh, bro, but it's 7 picks in 5 games with a clean pocket. That's brutal. Like you can't.
You're
That's
wrong.
not. It's not winning football, but it's so funny because every game that he has multiple turnovers, they won. So it's almost like when he's struggling, the team is feeding like, okay, we got to come together and do this ourselves type of deal.
Yeah, they're
And
making up for it.
yeah, and it's go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I want to talk about or just ask you guys this question because Jerry Richardson Stadium, it has been packed in the beginning of games, honestly. It's kind of withered out as the game goes along, and then they always can make this crazy comeback, and the stadium isn't as full as when it was in the first quarter. How important for both you guys is a fast start for this game? Because the crowd's going to be crazy, but you don't want to be down 10-0 or down 10-3, and then the crowd's not as raucous as you want it to be. How important is a fast start, being able to punch first in a game like this?
Are you ready to elevate your school spirit? Look no further than onecampusco.com. Whether you're in the classroom, on the field, or cheering from the stands, we're dedicated to bringing academics, athletics, alumni, and fans together. Founded by our alumni-owned parent company, One Chapter in 2021, we recognize the need for quality apparel at reasonable prices and created a shopping experience that connects fans with their university. Join us in showcasing your pride and giving back to your community. With onecampusco.com, you're not just a student, athlete, or fan, you're part of a vibrant family. Together, let's celebrate what makes our university special. Visit us at www.charlotte.onecampusco.com using promo code HWY49 for 10% off. Well, I think it's really important to have a fast start, especially in this game. I mean, you want to get on the board first. You're at home. It's an in-state rivalry. I think that just kind of feeds into the momentum for the rest of the game. I think once you're locked in, you get your mind right, you get on the board first. I think it's a lot easier to have consistency in the offense and just start to like see things kind of fit into place. The pieces of the puzzle, start to form. But I also think it's important in a crowd standpoint too, because you obviously, I don't know, I feel like I have high expectations for this game just because, this is the first time that ECU is coming to Jerry Richardson Stadium. And from what we've heard, it's supposed to be standing room only. And so I think it's important to put out a good product for the people that have paid to come and watch this team, especially for the people that have also come and traveled. I mean, I think it's really important just to have the fan base, the excitement when the fans are involved and they're screaming on the sidelines, that feeds into everything. As an athlete, you're like, oh yeah, like I'm not an athlete on the field, but like when I'm on the field, like reporting, I'm like, wow, like this would fire me up. Like, let's go. Like, give me pads, put me in there, and let's just go. So I just think that is just super important. It just carries the momentum throughout the entire game, and you're not having to wait until the crunch time of the fourth quarter. Like, all right, we got to lock in, we got to get it done. Get this win so that we can move on and say we pulled it out.
Don't let Hannah hit that A gap. It's over for
No,
it's
facts.
over for the opponent, man. Oh my God.
I'm telling you, they should be real terrified of me.
Oh man.
Yeah.
No doubt. She's not gonna trip in the hole like Darrell Robinson did. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We praised him last week. I had to bring it back down to earth.
True.
No, you're right, Jay. Fast start is something this team hasn't done this year. They haven't scored first. But really fast, let me set the scene. Saturday, 3:30, this place is sold out, standing room only, which in my mind, if you're a fan considering going to this game, if you don't have a ticket, go standing room only. The stadium is so intimate, it really doesn't matter where your seats are. Like, you're gonna be able to see everything that you want to see. And then the standing room is like pretty fun for the most part. You'll see a ton of the former athletes, Chris Reynolds, his family, they all stand. It's sort of what that's like on the concourse right outside. 3:30 kick, ESPNU, Charlotte's wearing gold. I don't even know if they've made that announcement yet. Like they're wearing the gold from week one. Like this is gonna be a beautiful scene when that sun sets over Richardson Stadium.
Yeah, we're in the presser today, right? In Lakota, this is what we were talking about, joking around in the opener. How we asked Lakota about this game, right? And he's like, "Man, I honestly think this is what do you say exactly? Like this is like the most excited or like biggest crowd or whatever type of game I've ever been in." So he's hyped up. He
That's
can't
why you
wait to
come
play
to
in front of
Charlotte.
them. It's why you come to Charlotte for these games, for this rivalry. And then we asked Omega the same thing. He was like, "Cool guy, like." Hey man, nameless face, nameless opponent. We gotta come in here and do our thing. Omega, come on, man. You know.
I gotta talk about him really fast. So I interviewed him before the season. So he got to Charlotte August 1st, right? So he was at South Carolina. He played, as Biff mentioned, he played really good against Georgia, had some good tape. And I believe in the spring, ahead of his first season, won like most improved player at South Carolina, well, ahead of his second season, rather. So after playing there last year, he transfers to ECU, spends the spring there, and then ultimately comes to Charlotte. And so I asked him a few months ago at media day for the team, why Charlotte? Like what went into that? And he said, well, I wanted to come here, but it was full. I was waiting on a spot to open up. So it sounded like a pit stop at ECU. I wanted him to address that today. Obviously, he didn't. I mean, whether you spend a spring somewhere, whether you spend a season, like you know the people there, you know the coordinators, you know the players, you learn the support staff. Like I think obviously this game has a lot more than he let on for like his, I guess, share of it. And coming off his career best game, 5 catches, buck 53, 2 touchdowns. I mean, this is no bigger time to show like this is what y'all missed out on than it would be Saturday night.
You hear that, Boneyard? He called y'all a pit stop.
Ooh,
A pit stop. Oof.
Ooh,
Yikes.
it's one
it's
of, go ahead, Hannah.
there you go.
It's one of those things where for the longest at Charlotte, especially under the Healy regime, which is kind of what I came up as a reporter. Chris Reynolds, Vic Tucker, Grant DuBose, you could tell when it was going to be someone's moment. Like going against Duke, Vic Tucker goes 100 yards in the fourth quarter. You knew it was his time. Like Grant DuBose had been snapping for most of the game. That was the type of thing that you knew. I don't know with this team. It could be Zay Myers. It could be Jairus Mack going for 100. It could be Omega for a buck 53. And there's still someone like Colin Weber, who this feels like a Colin Weber spot. Like the receivers are getting the attention. There's guys that are starting to demand double teams on the perimeter. How can this guy be a Swiss Army knife underneath and give a true freshman quarterback that kind of stability that he needs?
And one thing we haven't talked about, we talked about the Purdy, Ivy, we talked about the wide receiver core, talked about the defense. That O-line is going to be huge, man. Can you punch him in the mouth first? Can you protect your quarterback long enough to give them the opportunity to find those receivers we just mentioned downfield, right? The O-line, it seems like it's a thankless job because if you block well, no one mentions you. If you don't block well, everyone's coming after you. But this is one of those games where the offensive line is going to be massive and hopefully they can feed off of that crowd energy as well.
And that's one part. So Deshaun Purdy was blitzed quite a bit Saturday night against Rice in that second half. I think it was almost 40% of his snaps. He was under pressure quite a bit as well, but he did not commit a turnover, especially after what he showed against Gardner Webb. 5 turnover-worthy plays, 3 turnovers. Because what did Chris Reynolds say they were going to do to a true freshman? Blitz the hell out of him. I expect ECU is going to come with it as well. But how he manages it and how he can get out of the pocket and extend those plays, I think is going to determine a ton in this game because this is a huge spot. If he does start Saturday, I mean, y'all think about this, right? Coming to Charlotte as a true freshman, 18 years old, starting against the only real in-state rival that they got on the schedule. Shout out App State in like 2040, it feels like. But you, this is a huge spot for him. Like this is a pressure-packed moment. And my favorite part of Saturday night, and I'm going to plug some of this audio, was how he was in the post game and the confidence that he showed, the demeanor. Like he talked about his relationship with Ivy, picking up his brother, what it's like chemistry wise. So I'm going to plug some of that audio now and then elaborate just a bit more.
Promise you, man. It's a we thing. It's not a I. It's a we thing. He picked me up. I picked him up. You know what I'm saying? We got each other back to the end, and no, that's my brother. You do. I got his back. He got mine. So that's just how it works. You know, the chemistry in the room is we here because we gotta be. If we ain't, then something wrong. So man, it felt good, man. One of the things I said to the team is, set the tone in the first half. We just gotta pick up that energy and pick up our brother. You know what I'm saying? So just score every drive and be Charlotte football. Go down the field and execute each play to our best ability. So the conversation coming out after half.
Guys, that's coming from I mean, that's an 18-year-old, and he's talking like a vet, right? That's why Biff Poggi is saying stuff today like he can be an NFL quarterback. When you have that type of demeanor about you at such a young age, and you could tell Ali, who's an older guy sitting right next to him, is like, yeah, that's my quarterback. That's the type of mentality you want with the team. And I just think this is a pressure-packed moment. And if he is the guy, which I would bet my bottom dollar on it right now, he leads that first possession at the very least. That Saturday night's going to be a ton of fun. Hannah, I know you watched some of the post game. What were your thoughts on it? And we haven't gotten to talk to Deshaun much at all, which obviously being a true freshman makes sense. But when he's leading a team, you want those spots for him.
Yeah, we haven't gotten the chance to really talk to him at all. And like watching post game, he was excited. He was amped up. He just seemed thankful for the opportunity, excited to be there. I really liked what he said about Trexler Ivy because I can't imagine being in that spot and, being taken out of a game and, constantly battling it out with someone and not knowing if you're getting the starting job. But his response of, it's a we thing. I really, really liked that, and that spoke to his character. I mean, that speaks to his character that he's able to win over the locker room. I mean, I feel like every single quarterback in that room has the respect of the locker room. And that's something that's rare. I don't think you see that in many places. So, I mean, especially for Deshaun, I think that he is miles um as far as like being mature wise. I think he's miles ahead. But he still has a lot of things to learn, but it would just be absolutely awesome if he is the starting guy to see him kind of get his moment of, okay, it's like, okay, Deshaun Purdy, welcome to Charlotte. Like, I would love to see that, especially against ECU.
One of the best things on Twitter are seeing the OTDs on this day 5 years ago. And it's just like this guy went off. Megatron had 11 receptions for 200 something. That would be really cool for Deshaun Purdy or someone on Charlotte too. On this day, Deshaun Purdy, true freshman, goes whatever for this stat line in a game of this magnitude. So I mean, we're hyping it up a lot, but Saturday can't come fast enough, man. And Lakota said, what did he say today? He was like, man, I can't go to sleep. I'm staring at my
I
ceiling,
can't
right? Like,
sleep.
I just want to like run through a wall. I'm like, Lakota, I'm right there with you, man. That press box food better be slapping. Better be slapping.
They got no choice, man. They got to follow up what they had last time. And
Yeah, well, it's gonna definitely be a very fun one. I mean, the Voodoo Bowl, 3:30. It's going down in Jerry Richardson Stadium. I'm excited. The Niners versus the Pirates, but you guys, start of NBA season, you guys were at the preseason for the Hornets. I'm really excited to kind of bring this onto the pod. I'm excited to get y'all's, thoughts, opinions, everything that's going on with the NBA. But how was that presser for you, and what were some of the things that you talked about in your takeaways?
yeah, media day in the NBA is sort of like a car wash. You go GM, coach, player, and then the media crowd, which is the biggest, as Jeremy mentioned, the guys that you see when the Lakers are in town. And obviously you got your core pieces, and we saw what it was like last year media wise, but the group dwindles. But it was crazy to me, like when it dwindled, like guys like Taj Gibson coming up, just like 4 or 5 media members in the room, like Tajon Salon, the number 6 overall pick in the draft. There's hardly anything or in any media left after guys like LaMelo and Brandon Miller. And by the way, if I think my goal this season is to get LaMelo to give like a 3 sentence answer. Shout out UJ for the shoe question because man, other than like, yep, I'm good, ankle's good, yep, excited to be back. You're not getting anything from Melo. Overall, though, when you watch this Hornets team, like I say, cycle through play after player after player, you start to say like team got they got some solid guys. Like if you could keep them on the court, I think it could be fun. But Jay, what were some of your thoughts and takeaways from opening day?
Media day is for any sport is just a hopeful delusion, if we're being completely honest.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
like
so true.
every fan base is like clean slate. Oh wow, healthy, fully healthy. Here we
Fire me up.
go. You know, like oh wow, we got a little squad to us. Okay, okay, we can make some noise. And then 3 weeks in, you're like kind of you fall back down to earth. But with that being said, I'm on Hunter's side here. It was refreshing to be back in the building. Can't wait to see what the HSE Hornet Sports and Entertainment like what they've done with the renovations. But it's crazy because Melo walks in. Mark Williams, who is injured, but he seemed like he was like, it's no worry. I think it's more precautionary
Yeah.
than, really, really,
No boot or nothing with him.
yeah. So he seemed like he was in good spirits. Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, Grant Williams, Nick Richards. You're walking in, you're like, dang, this a little bit of a squad here, like they might be able to make some noise in the Eastern Conference, but overall, I would say it's it's cool to see, and I'm only in my second year covering the NBA, but it is cool to see the progression of these guys. Like I asked Cody Martin, who's one of like when you think of the Hornets, Cody is not one of the first people you think of, but he's entering year 6. I remember when he was in college. I remember watching Taj Gibson in the 2011 playoffs with the Bulls in like a high stakes moment, and it's me, Hunter, Jerry, a couple other guys in there, and we're asking Taj questions because we remember that like we grew up on Taj Gibson. And Hunter, you asked him a question about Derrick Rose, and he was like, dude, I was tearing up. I cried when that news came out because what D Rose means, and this is one of the things where I think this new generation, a lot of kids growing up today, don't know what D Rose meant to the NBA. It's not just the plays that he had. He was 22 years old, going up against prime Wade, LeBron, and Bosh, going up against the Boston Celtics who won in '08 and giving them business, like giving them the work. And he was one of those stars that, like, you see Steph hitting the shimmy, you see Steph doing the 1, 2, 3, 4 point play stuff. D Rose was the opposite. He would dunk on you and not show an emotion. He just give you a mean mug, right?
Yeah.
Like cut from the cloth of the old guys. But media day was fun. I can't wait to get, back in the building. I think the first Hornets preseason game is on Sunday against the Knicks. The new
Yep.
Knicks with Cat. It's going to be interesting, but again, it's just really cool to see all of us too, not just the NBA players. Like Hannah, you're killing it. Hunter, you're killing it. And it's good to see where we were. I remember meeting you guys 2, 3 years ago at this point in Charlotte football. That's why I have so much. I didn't go there, but I still have so much like love for the program just because it was my start. And
Yep.
seeing where we are at now, and it's just really cool to see the maturation of not only the teams we cover, but also us as people too.
Well said, man. The only thing I had on my mind was wearing like the Audi Zero Rose ones to middle school with like super
Oh
high elite
man, you're bringing
socks
back
and like
memories
cargo
now. You're
shorts,
bringing
bro.
back
Yeah.
memories
About
now,
the
man.
cargos.
I had like
Yeah,
the
cargo
Hollister
elite
shirt
socks with
on.
the
What's
high
up?
tops.
Oh man,
It was a different
that was a
time.
bit.
Hey
Yeah,
man, it was working
Hey.
back then, but no doubt it's go ahead, man.
yeah. If are you about to wrap up?
I get it.
Um, if we're about to wrap up, everyone's talked about this. Everyone opened the presser with this. Biff said it too. Hurricane Helene. I think we can spend a couple minutes on this really quick. Like Western Carolina got wrecked. Um, and seeing some of those videos coming out where some people in Asheville are like cut off from the world. You can't hit a highway and get out of there. So hearing Biff take some time, thanks to Mike Solarte for asking that question to close the presser. But it's crazy, and sometimes you just realize like we're podcasting about a fucking football
A
team,
game.
a
Yeah.
game, right? Like the Osborn situation on Twitter, like in the larger span of things, who gives a F? Like it really doesn't matter. There are some more serious things happening. So hopefully when you guys listen to this, it'll be more of a relief. It'll be more of a like escape from the other stuff that's happening. But yeah, we just want to say prayers up to everybody because what we do is nothing compared to the first responders or the people who are actually in there. So shout out to everybody and prayers up from the Highway 49 podcast.
Yeah, well said, man. I thought it was awesome. Biff and associate head coach John Jacobson are donating, I think, $20,000 a piece. He announced today to that, and yeah, just a wild, just I guess week of events in North Carolina. But Jeremy, you summed it up perfect. With that, guys, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap the show. Looking forward to seeing you guys all out at Jerry Richardson Stadium this Saturday. It's going to be a great environment. 16,000 plus tickets already sold, at least that's what the internet tells me. So looking
If you're in
forward
the
to
press box, say hi, man. Benjamin,
yeah, for
I
sure.
know what you look like now, and I can read lips better, hopefully. So Hunter and I won't just be like, what did he say? What? So yeah, just say what's up. Thanks for the support. Really appreciate it.
As always, guys, appreciate y'all tuning in to the Highway 49 podcast, and we'll be back soon. Oh, and stay tuned. We got a little two-part drop this week. Friend of ours, Brian Battle of the UFC. Awesome interview with him. So stay tuned for that.